the continued legacy of the artist and educator Frida Kent. As you heard from Supervisor Mark Ridley-Thomas and have just seen in the video clip, Frida was a product of Los Angeles, and I am proud that today we are recognizing her as such. Frida saw all that the growing art scene in Los Angeles had to offer. She took her students all over the county, from Hollywood to Watts to the beach. And of course, she found inspiration in the movies, but she also found meaning and ritual in everyday life and objects. Through her art, Frida shared ideas about faith, love, justice, and hope. She challenged racial and economic inequality at home, protested the war abroad, and pushed boundaries in the church and the art world. Some of this work is now over 50 years old, but it still feels powerfully relevant. Anyone who can inspire us to show up to make change is invaluable. For me, that is Frida. She challenges us to look at what hope really means. Hope is not optimism. Hope is hard work, and you have to show up to make change. If you aren't yet familiar with Frida, I hope you will get to know her. I feel so strongly that Frida is the cultural icon that we all need. Rebellious, yet hopeful. For today's world, she still has so much to teach us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the Executive Director of the Immaculate Heart Center, the one and only Linda Anderson, for the work that she's done. Give her a round of applause, won't you? She and other colleagues came to my attention and said there's a time for you to celebrate something that's indigenous to Los Angeles. It's Frida Kent, all of her work and the legacy that she represents. Some might ask why it is that they sought me out. Well, it was in 1972 that I found my way to a college named Immaculate Heart. I spent my undergraduate years there and my graduate degree and got several teaching credentials, and it launched me. Helen Keller just recently passed. Mary Jane Pugh, Alexis Navarro, systematician, League, and all of these wonderful constitutional rights scholars, sociologists, theologians, and the like, embraced me and they lifted me up, and I am profoundly indebted to them. I finished the undergraduate work and made my way down the hill to a school named Immaculate Heart High School. I wanted to be well known that it's the high point of my career to date, having taught high school girls. They taught me more than I could have imagined. And so it is this Immaculate Heart community that continues to make an impact of consequence. And I am honored and proud to simply be associated with it. Its long tradition of advocacy, standing up for even those described as the least of these. And so thank you very much, Madam Chair and colleagues, for the opportunity to bring this to your attention as we celebrate the arts through the lens, through the work, through the legacy of Frida Kent. Another big round of applause, won't you? I saw Sheila Q bursting at the seams there for some reason. I don't know if you can restrain yourself or not.
Very difficult since I have so many Sister Frida posters up on my wall at home, and it was one of those, my office at UCLA. It was just such a big part of our lives. So thank you so much for keeping us all alive and all the work that you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to take a little opportunity, and colleagues, if you join me, I'd be honored to have you with us. Once again, Madam Chair, I thank you, and this morning I'm pleased to recognize the 100th anniversary of the United States Congress's granting citizenship to Native American veterans. I just think that deserves a big round of applause. 100th anniversary. The history of this nation is often challenging to digest, and some say the current events of this nation are somewhat challenging to digest. Here we are, a century later. Though they were not granted the right of U.S. citizenship, approximately 10,000 Native American men volunteered to serve in World War I. Their contributions were numerous and heroic. The Choctaw and other American Indian code talkers played a role in aiding secure communications during the war. They adapted their languages and their dialects, little known outside their tribes, into special codes, secretly conveying military messages over German tapped telephone and telegraph lines. They're members of a range of nations, not the least of which the Navajos. They served as infantrymen, artillerymen, and nearly every rank up to and including that of major. More than 150 Native American infantry men were decorated for valor, and 10 were awarded prestigious awards for their valor over and over again. Unlike Puerto Ricans, Japanese Americans, African Americans, Native Americans were not required to serve in segregated units. In recognition of their wartime service, Congress passed House Resolution 5007, conferring citizenship upon Native American World War I veterans, also known as Citizenship Act 1919, H.R. 5007, and read in part, be it enacted that every American Indian who served in the military or naval establishments of the United States during the war shall be granted full citizenship with all the privileges pertaining thereto. Shamefully, I underscore shamefully, it would be another 5 years before Congress would pass the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. Even after that, the privileges of citizenship were largely governed by state law, and the right to vote was often denied Native Americans until well into the 20th century. So today we're pleased to be joined by a wonderful group of colleagues and representatives. The president of the Native American Veterans Association, Ted Tenorio, the interim executive director of the commission, Sandra Mitchell, and then there's Cherie Thomas, our second district appointee to the commission. And to that, Patricia Jackson Kelly, second district appointee to the Veterans Advisory Commission. They're here. And then there's General Ruth Wong, who's the director of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Robin Toma, director of the Commission on Human Relations. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to acknowledge Otto. Otto is doing great work in his interim capacity as the Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Service. So Otto Soloranzo is here, and we are pleased to now welcome Ms. Thomas to have words, and then Mr. Tenorio will have words to share with us. Should we please come forward?
Miguito. Good morning. On behalf of the 157,000 Native Americans here in Los Angeles County, we are happy and we are so proud of our veterans. We accept this wonderful recommendation from the county on behalf of our grandparents, our parents, our siblings, in my case, my cousin Gary Papp, a military veteran who lost his long battle with cancer last year. And there's a very long and storied history of Natives serving, even when they're not citizens of this country. And we just have the greatest, I guess you would say, happiness and I guess loyalty that we feel towards our veterans. I want to thank Ted Tenorio, our Native American Veteran Association president, for continuing this tradition and for our service to our country.
Hoka, Kashiska. Hello, let my people know that I am so happy to stand here because of the citizenship awards to the World War I veterans becoming citizens. I myself am a veteran of U.S. Army. I served in Vietnam with 25th Infantry. But here's this. I was raised in Arizona. I was raised by Prescott. Back in the 1860s, my grandmother, who lived to be 90, said to me that the 25th Infantry Division occupied that. The Apaches, the Yavapai, all the people around our community were rounded up by the cavalry, moved into reservations. The anger, the death, the starvation, the brutality. Yet, when I entered into the U.S. military, I didn't know I was going to be stationed at the 25th. But when I got there, I realized that though all the stories I was told, I was an American, a soldier first, to give my duty to my country, if it will even cost my life. I served my country proudly. I was awarded Purple Heart. I was wounded. I was a combat vet. I came back home. I looked around and said, yes, this land that I stand on was the First Nation land, and this land is all our land, and I was proud to serve. So I want to thank the county and the Board of Supervisors for recognizing the Native American Veterans Association, which actually has the highest per capita of all Native military branches in the U.S. forces. So thank you again for this honor.
Madam Chair, would you be kind enough and colleagues to join us? I want to remind the board and audience that the chair displayed an extraordinary amount of leadership in terms of Veterans Day activities at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Where's the chair? Where are you, Madam Chair? Come forward. Madam Chair is a veteran of many wars. Thank you so much.
In case you're wondering about the order of things, we all take turns. Last week I was first and this week I'm last. So, but last is never least when you get to honor a genius. You know, a lot of people say, boy, that was genius, or you're a genius. But Kelly Lytle Hernandez really is a genius, and we know that because she got a MacArthur grant. And that's how you know you're a genius. You get that surprise phone call and they say, guess what? So she was named as one of the 2019 MacArthur Fellows. She's an historian, author, UCLA professor, and with great gratitude from the county, the co-chair of the Alternatives to Incarceration Work Group, which is a board-established committee which we charge with helping the county develop and scale up alternatives to incarceration through a care first and jail last approach. You know, in the recent and current political climate, Kelly Lytle Hernandez's work is more vital than ever. Her work is rooted in the notion that understanding the United States legacy of marginalizing people of color is key to dismantling the systemic racism that plagues our justice and our immigration systems. Her first book, Migra, A History of the U.S. Border Patrol, is the first significant academic history of that enforcement organization, and it explores this country's alternatively exploitative and restrictive attitudes toward Mexican migration. Her second book, City of Inmates, Conquest, Rebellion, and the Rise of Human Caging in Los Angeles, 1771 to 1965, documents in remarkable detail how LA County built the largest jail system in the United States. The only way to ever reform anything is to face its history, with any problematic parts it may contain head on. So it's very, very important, and we're very pleased to be able to call to everyone's attention this MacArthur grant and the work of Kelly Lytle Hernandez. I often think how lucky we are to be able to work with so many smart and dedicated people. She is definitely one of the best and brightest. So Kelly, I know there are many people who are here with you, and that must mean that you count on them for all of the great work that you've done, and perhaps even daily existence. But I want to thank you and turn this over to my colleague Mark Thomas to continue to thank you for what you're doing for me. Mark.
Let's try this one. Is that working? Thank you very much, Supervisor Q, for inviting me to join in recognizing the innovation and leadership that is being displayed by this extraordinary scholar who makes a difference, causes it to come together in an extraordinary way. She's contributed groundbreaking scholarship as director of the Bunch Center for African American Studies, which is celebrating its own 50th anniversary this year. And I just think it's worth noting that that doesn't mean she's been there 50 years, it means that it's celebrating 50 years. Named after the Nobel Prize winner, scholar, activist, and UCLA alumnus, Ralph Bunche. The center is the result of the struggle by Black students at UCLA to have their history and their culture recognized and studied. Enter then Dr. Lytle Hernandez and her upbringing near the U.S.-Mexico border, which shaped her earliest experiences and has influenced a sense of empathy and urgency that attached to her policy perspectives. I know this firsthand as a result of collaborating with her recently on a document that we sent forward to the governor of the state of California, trying to punctuate the urgency of the hour with respect to a range of issues in criminal justice reform and beyond. And I think it's important that we collaborate with academics who want to collaborate with policymakers. In other words, it's a merging of the academy and the laboratory. That's how we move it forward. So we celebrate those who weigh in. Join with our colleague, Dr. Pedro Noguera and Dr. Tyrone Howard in looking at the educational status of students in LA Unified School District, a big deal, and pledged her own sense of contribution to that effort. Well, she's been honored as a local hero for her work in promoting social justice. And with all her accolades and her substantive work challenging structural racism, calling attention to the stories of communities that have been marginalized, locked out, excluded, deported, and even enslaved, it is unsurprising that she breaks through as a MacArthur Foundation awardee who among some 26 fellows. And so it's a good thing to have her here. It's not a bad thing that she's a resident of the 2nd Supervisorial District. We love that, and I'm pleased to now, with the permission of my colleagues, turn the mic over to her, and I'd like to recognize her husband, the one and only Sebastian Hernandez, and that makes sure that we have domestic tranquility. Thank you very much. We now turn you over to Dr. Lilo Hernandez. Thank you. Big round of applause.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thanks. That's my husband. First, I want to thank the Tongva Gabrielino peoples as the original caretakers of the land where we meet today to have this conversation. And I am my community, and my community is me. So this Genius Award is our award, and we are the geniuses who work together. So I want to spend a couple minutes just thanking all the people who came and who support me in the work that we do. Of course, the supervisors, thank you for this honor. It really means so much to be honored and acknowledged by your community. It's no higher recognition than to come from you and from the people that I work with. I work on race, immigration, and mass incarceration, and I'm hoping to push and bend the arc toward justice, toward freedom for most marginalized communities in the United States. But to do this work requires brilliant communities of scholars and activists to work with. So I want to thank my partners at the $1 Million Hoods Project at UCLA, where we map the cost of incarceration here in Los Angeles. I want to thank my colleagues at the Ralph J. Bunche Center for African American Studies, who together every day we lift up, we hold the significance and importance of improving the conditions of Black life, will improve the conditions of all life. I want to thank the UCLA Government Relations and Government and Community Relations team, which has always advocated for our community-oriented, action-oriented research. So thank you for everything you've done for us. And I want to thank our community organizers here in Los Angeles, in particular here today's Youth Justice Coalition and Community Coalition. We're here to fight for criminal justice reform. We have to meet in the hallways, but you're here to do the fight. But I wanted them to join me because they have been critical in the work that I have been developing at $1 Million Hoods and also with the recent book, City of Inmates. Let me tell you, Kim McGill here read the entire book and gave me feedback and made that an award-winning book, made that award-winning scholarship. So that was done collectively and in community. So yeah, give it up to YJC and Community Coalition. And finally, I just want to thank my husband, Sebastian Hernandez. I run all over the country, all over the city and the county, and he holds me down, and he holds our family down, so thank you.
Yeah, the whole group.
Okay, that concludes all of our presentations this morning. Madam Executive Officer, please play the Code of Conduct.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? The meeting of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors is about to commence. A code of conduct will now be read, and we request that you comply with it to ensure the efficient administration of the meeting.
Right here.
Members of the public,
Big no
it is
deal.
your right to participate in today's board hearing, and the board encourages such participation. However, the right of the public to address the board must be balanced with the need
Right
to
hand
ensure
of the
that public
supervisors.
comment does not
Sheriff,
interfere
everybody
with
there.
the orderly course of the board's business. All are reminded to abide by the following rules. Speakers must cease speaking immediately when their time has ended. Public comment on agenda items must relate to the subject matter of that